It had been 3 days since Nicky had seen a guard, 3 days since he had seen anybody except the man in the cell next to him and a creature whose teeth chattered and grabbed at him constantly through the bars. He had been arrested in Manhattan 5 days ago and was being held in the 12th precinct, although not for what he thought he would have been. Not murder charges for the killing of 2 Russian mobsters, but for running down an old lady. For 3 days Nicky had had no idea how it had happened. One minute he was driving down 34th Street in Manhattan, and the next thing all he saw was a body rolling over his windscreen, thumping over his roof, and landing behind him. Now he knew what had happened. The old lady had been bitten. He sat slumped against the wall on a seat that was too low, staring at a monster that had once been a large police officer. Over the 3 days since the officer had changed, Nicky had seen his skin turn from a pinkish color to a dark gray. His eyes lost their whiteness, and his skin began to peel from his body. "You're going to have to do something," a voice said mockingly. Nicky looked through the bars over at the cell beside him. Slumped against the wall looking over at him was Kyle. Nicky didn't know his last name and he didn't care. A long-haired man of skin and bone with a horseshoe mustache. His black leather jacket was frayed at the edges and jeans torn and holey. He had told Nicky he had been arrested after a bar fight, to which Nicky was not surprised. The man was hardly in a position to give Nicky advice. He was going to die, it was just a matter of time. Nicky had told him that, to which the man had replied, "Not die, but live forever." Then he laughed. A day ago the man had been bitten by the officer. It was only on the hand, but it drew blood, and that was all that mattered. Now Kyle sat in his cell waiting to turn into one of the undead monsters. Kyle held up his hand. "Don't make the same mistake I did." His skin was already turning a dark grey color where the wound was. Out of fear and desperation, Kyle had tried to snatch the officer's gun from his belt, and when he did, the creature bit him. Before the cops had left, one had given Nicky a bottle of water and half a pack of stale crackers, and that was all Nicky had had to live on for 3 days. The crackers had been eaten on the first day, but he had made the water last and still had a mouthful in the bottom of the bottle. Since the police had abandoned the precinct, Nicky had been thinking of ways of escaping the jail. For days they had heard gunshots outside the walls and often hysterical screams and even explosions. Kyle had said he could smell smoke, and Nicky thought he wasn't wrong. Nicky couldn't escape with the creature roaming on the outside of the bars. It hunted them day and night without sleeping or rest. When Nicky had to sleep, it was with his back pressed hard against the far wall, as far as he could get away from the creature. When he woke it would be there, its arms pushed through the bars reaching for him. Each day its eyes turned blacker, more demonic. Despite its grotesqueness, it wasn't its black eyes or skin that struck fear into Nicky. It was its constant chattering of teeth that Nicky couldn't get out of his head. And then even if he somehow managed to kill the creature, there was the problem of getting out of the cell. Hanging off the belt of the creature were the keys to the cell, but he had no way of getting them. As he sat there staring at the monster, he noticed one thing: how slowly it moved, its arms waving around as if guided by some unnatural force. And there was another thing: the creature had been shot 3 times in the chest, but still it stood. But then Nicky had an idea. He had no weapons, but he did have one thing: a belt. He stood, undid the buckle and slid the belt from his trousers, and then moved towards the creature. It grabbed at him, pressing its face hard against the bars. For his plan to work, Nicky would need to be quick and he needed a distraction. He looked at Kyle. The man's eyes had a glaze over them. "Kyle, I have a plan to get us out of here." Kyle's head moved slightly towards him. "I'm listening." "Draw it off me." "How's that going to help?" "Just do it," Nicky snapped. Kyle stood, his legs shaky and movements jerky. "You take me with you, your word, hitman." Nicky studied Kyle. The man looked more dead than alive now. He wondered how long it would be till he was full dead. "Of course." Kyle nodded. "What do you want me to do?" "Bang," Nicky said. "Bang loud and yells." Kyle went to the bars and began to kick them and scream and holler. The creature moved away from Nicky's cell. When it had gone, Nicky pushed one end of the belt through one bar and then around another. The leather was thick and held form well. He slid it up above the height of the creature's head. Kyle smiled as he fell silent and moved to the back of his cell. The creature went back to Nicky, and as it reached through the bars, Nicky lowered the belt behind its head and pulled hard, trapping the creature with the belt around the back of its neck and face pressed to the steel. Nicky pushed the belt through the buckle and pulled it tight, and then tied it to an adjacent bar. Now the creature couldn't move its head or body. It was trapped. Carefully, Nicky reached down under its waving arms. "That's it," Kyle yelled. His voice caused Nicky to freeze. Then, with the strike of a snake, he snatched the keys from the cop's belt. In the next cell, Kyle was cheering. "Get us out," he screamed. With the creature unable to move, Nicky opened the prison cell and stepped out. Without a glance back, he began to walk down the corridor to freedom. "Hey, Sparrow," Kyle yelled. "What about me? You promised you'd take me, Widowmaker." The door at the end of the corridor took some pushing. A table and chairs had been piled up against it. As Nicky made his way through the precinct, he could still hear the screams of Kyle. He stopped by a window. Outside, night was coming. An hour at most, and it would be pitch black. But the lights were on in the precinct. Emergency power, he thought to himself. Nicky peered through the window. Outside, he could see a car overturned and bodies lying beside it. A fire had burnt through a house several doors down. Nicky moved away from the window and began to search the room. He went through the drawers and cabinets. No guns or knives. Any weapons had been taken, but then he spotted something in the corner, a set of golf clubs. He pulled out a driver and then made his way back to the cells. Kyle had stopped yelling, but when he saw him again, he began to scream. Nicky ignored his pleas and raised the club, and with a swift swing hit the creature in the back of the head, caving its skull in. Finally, its arms fell limp. Nicky pulled the gun from the creature's holster and a second magazine and then left again. Kyle had gone quiet. He must have realized Nicky was never going to free him. Nicky walked through the rooms and made his way outside. The last of the light was falling, but he could see clearly enough still. It was not the New York he had known.